let's go ahead and set up a quick project to kind of expose the problem that we are trying to solve here using AI as the knowledge engine to build your very first Node.js framework. So I could paint for you pictures of what the problem is, but that's not going to be very sticky in your brain for you to kind of learn what it is that we want to do. So I think it's best to be practical enough and just really write some code so we can clearly expose the problem, and then we would see the framework that we wish to use, how this is actually going to help us make life even easier. So we might also try to use other third-party solutions out there to see how this would make life easier other than like building like a full stack application. So our main goal here is to help UI designers or front end developers to focus on their work without necessarily worrying about the backend services or the backend team to complete the work. So you can quickly mock up some of your REST services or some API endpoints quickly before the backend is up and running. And we are going to keep this very simple just to provide the core solution. And if time allows and interest as well, if those allows, then we will probably build something, or we would add extra features to support other cases as well. But we'll see how that is. For now, we're just more interested in the MVP. So for this, let me actually create a generic project here. So I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna go and call this as BS services, something like maybe BS services, something like that. So that's going to be the name of my project, and I'm going to go to BS services, and we can see there is nothing here. Now, the first thing I want here is that I'm going to say I first want to create a simple project. So maybe there's going to be a lot of things here, but I am going to let me see. So let's see, the first thing here is let's create the app. I'm going to go there and create the app directory, user apps. So let's say this is going to be that, and then if that completes, then we're going to change to user apps, something like that. So we are in the user app. So here we're going to have different kind of apps that's going to be running around, and each of these apps are going to need some sort of backend services. So here we'll pretend that we are front end, or we're working with the front end teams. And so the first thing I think I'm going to use is I'm going to build here is going to be auth so the auth app. So anything that's going to manage users and stuff like that. And we're purely going to focus on the front end, and then the back end stuff we will deal with it later at some point. And then we'll see how the framework is going to come up to sort of help us. So let's actually go ahead and see. So our framework of choice here, I think I'm going to use Next.js, and particularly it's going to be the app router. And if you don't know what Next.js is, please just go to the documentation or scour some tutorials on that, and you would kind of see what we mean there. So like I say, this is not our this is not a beginner tutorial, so you need to have some of the knowledge of the things that we're talking about. So to follow the course, you don't actually need to use Next.js. You can essentially use the same thing that I'm doing here. Just build some sort of front end app that can be vanilla JavaScript or React or whatever. It doesn't concern. There's nothing here. There's nothing that says that we should be using Next.js. As a matter of fact, you can even build a React app or any sort of a front end app that you know it's going to communicate over the network to a backend services that's going to do something. That's totally fine. You don't need to use Next.js. But for the sake of the course, I'm going to be using Next.js. So I'm going to see npx create next app, the latest, and I'm going to go run around with this. I'm going to say oh, okay, users. So I'm going to call this users. And do I need TypeScript? Yes, of course I'm going to use TypeScript. So TypeScript is sort of like the standard whenever you are writing JavaScript project. So I'm kind of used to it. So that's why I'm going to be using this. Even for the framework that we're going to sort of develop, we are also going to be using TypeScript. So I'm going to go and accept that default. I want to use Tailwind also. So Tailwind is sort of like a CSS framework, so this way I don't have to write CSS all from scratch, and then I'm going to accept that as well. So I don't need the service, the source directory. And what do I use? The app router, yes, I'm going to use that. A table, yes. And then do I need to have aliases for that? No, I don't need that. And then obviously it's gonna go ahead and create that project for me. And I think it's also going to initialize some sort of a Git repository for us, but we'll check that. I might be wrong, but let's see. So if we go to users, we should see that there is something that has already been added here, and then we can essentially now do git let's say git status, and then we can see there's nothing, but also but we can see that actually works. So the GS is an alias for git status. So if you see me doing like a GS, that is essentially what I'm trying to do. It's a shortcut that I've added into my command line tools to help me not to be verbose. So that's it. Now we have the app running, so I'm going to go there and do yarn dev. So yarn dev is actually going to go ahead and spin up a development server, and this server now is running on this particular local host. So I'm going to go ahead and actually copy that and jump into the browser here, and I'm just going to go ahead and open that up, and you can see we have our Next.js already application running here. So I'm just gonna go and do some quick modifications here. Let me see what's going on here. So yeah, so now so we have this now. I'm just gonna go ahead and open another terminal here, then I will open this up in the VS Code. And obviously, yes, I will trust this because this is me who created this project, and that's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and close that. Thank you. So let's actually come here. So we can see here that our Tailwind CSS is working. We can do actually all kinds of stuff here. For example, I can say I want the background of this to be green. Let me bump this to about 700, a dark green. So if I come back to the how do I say, if I come back to the browser here, you can see the background of our app has actually changed. So if I go back to Node here, I'm just gonna go ahead and undo that. So that is just a test that our Tailwind classes is working. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove the whole of this stuff here all the way to the footer, and I'm going to say I'm just gonna go put p no, maybe H1, I believe. So we're gonna say user directories, something like that. So all what we're doing here essentially is that we're just creating. We have our front end. This front end is just gonna go and help us add a new user, and then we are also going to create. We can add new users and delete or edit a particular user that is given a classic CRUD sort of operation. So we are going to try to do this in the memory. Okay, so in memory, so essentially what we want is that we just want the user to sort of to do that. So to essentially do this, I'm going to have to accelerate the development process here because we're using AI, right? So I'm going to accelerate this a little bit, but I'm going to be doing this live on the camera, so you can kind of start seeing it. So the way I like to do this is I'm just gonna go ahead and come here and say users. I'll create something here, a point here called users, and I'm just gonna go in Next.js. I'll go and add. We have a required so we should say list of users, right? So let's see, list of users, and then another one here. I'm just gonna go ahead and copy that and duplicate that. I'm gonna say create, and then this one is gonna go. We're gonna say create new user, create new user, and of course we're going to have to add a form here, but for now we're just gonna go ahead and continue with these. So what am I going to need here? So the first thing is that I want to have on each of this app here, for example in the user, I'm going to create like the file here called the backend, right? And then I'm also going to, and then another one I will create here. I'll create the front end, and then let's see the other one. I'm just gonna go have it as shared. So shared code. So the code that is gonna go into the front into this one here is going to be that would be shared in both the backend and front end, and most of those candidates are going to be things like types, right? The types in TypeScript, and then we also other things like schema. So depending on the schema library that you're going to be using, this might look different. You might have a different schema service for your backend and another one for the front end, but essentially they kind of do the same thing. You have to sort of validate, or it can also help you quickly understand the shape of the data that you are having for your application. So all right, so now what do we need to do here? So I'm just gonna go ahead and really quick and commit that. Let me say add. So when you see me doing add, that is an equivalent of saying git status, git add, something like that. So it's again, I'm telling you here that if this is moving quick, you just need to know that I have added some aliases. So just try to kind of guesstimate like the how do I say, do not worry too much about how I do my stuff. Pay more attention to the knowledge that we are getting to here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and essentially commit this, and I would say add project structure. So and we are going to go and do that. In fact, this is supposed not to be on the main branch, but for now let's not worry about git stuff. Let's just worry about this thing here. So the other thing is, now I'm going to go here and I need to add Zod. I need to add a Zod here as for our schema. So the Zod is essentially the thing that we're going to use to define our schema for that's gonna work for both front end and back end. And I will show you why this makes sense to for our for our framework here in a second. But for now, we have Zod that has been imported. So I'm just gonna go ahead. I would say, let's see. I'm going to say, okay. I want the. Let me see here. So I'm going to go here to the AI. Why not? So here, let me see. This is going to be the AI. So I'm gonna go. Okay, can you generate Zod schema for for the following user fields. So we want the ID. This is going to be ID. This is a string. String. In fact, then username. This is also string, and avatar. Okay, photo URL. This is also string, and then let's see what is next, and then the full name. Let's say name. This is going to be also string. The photo URL is going to be it's essentially going to be it's going to be not required. So I think the AI is smart enough to essentially understand that. So I'm going to go and then send that to it, and it's going to go ahead and get that for me. So I think that's great. So we're just going to go ahead and drag that and just post that there. So we have the user that has been exported. We need to export this obviously. So we now have a user that is here. So now with this user now, we should the next thing we're going to have to do is that we want to have like we want to get some sort of we want to have like a schema for the endpoint. So for this, I'm just gonna go ahead. We need to export another schema. This is going to be create user schema, and this would be like this would be user schema, and we are going to kind of pick, I think pick we would pick a couple of stuff here. So we just obviously need the user name. Oh really, did it make that username optional? Let's see, this is going to be true, and we need obviously the photo URL and this one as well, the name. So the name, this is photo URL is optional, but for now let's just get rid of this because it looks like it's saying this is deprecated whatever, but I'm just gonna go get rid of that and put that there. So so this schema, do we also need this one here? So let's see. So I am going to go ahead and use this, and I would say okay, so using the Zod infer give me actually, so let's actually come here, let's come to the types here and then just say import Zod z from Zod, and then we now need to create types here. So we're going to say export for my types. I'm going to go user, so I'm going to say users user. This is going to be, I think, T type, and then we're going to have Zod z.infer something, and this one is going to be the type of the schema, which is going to be user schema, and I think that's gonna be it. We don't need the other stuff. So then the other one is we also want to say t create user, and this is going to be create user schema, and get rid of the other one there. Okay, so we have now produced we now know these are the fields that we need for storing an individual user, and then also for retrieving individual or list of users. We're going to kind of get this those things. So when the other thing that we need is we also need to have like users, right? So essentially users is going to be this one here. We would have, this is going to be t users. Let's see, t users, and we just want the we just want that one. We just want the array of the users. So it looks like now we have our stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and accelerate this a little bit. I'll say, okay, let me see. So if this is the schema, the schema for user object, why do I put that question there? So I'm just gonna go and put that there, and these and the derivative let's see, derivative types inferred are, I don't know why that is so wacky there. Let's see that. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab these types here. Now can you so let's say using how do I say? So okay, using React context manager, can you give me a CRUD functionality for managing user? We want organize the files in modules and clearly label them. Okay, so this is probably terrible I don't know prompt, but let's just see what it is going to be. And so let's see. So it's gonna give us the file structure. So here, so okay, so it doesn't need to type all this other stuff, but there we go, it's doing it. So let's see. Yeah, I think the number one thing we want here is the context, the interface. This is okay, so we have all right, so let's start by this. I'm just gonna go ahead and tweak some of this thing here a little bit. So let's see here in the front end, we want to first of all use we're going to create a hook that's going to be use user or something like that. I don't know, TS, and then we're just going to go ahead and paste that there and get rid of this one, and I'm just going to go ahead and import all of these missing ones and place that there. So we have a user context And now we also need a, okay, it's saying it's gonna go and say the user provider. Why do we need a provider? Um, no, I don't think we need a provider. Huh. Yeah, that's okay. So let's actually try to clean this a little bit. So maybe instead of the context manager, um, or Zeus stand, um, craft functionality, organize files into modules, and and make sure to create to organize uh, UI logics in hooks where necessary. Let's see what this one is going to do. Okay, so this looks a little bit better now. I'm thinking this looks a little better. So user store and hooks. That, I think that looks a little better, I would say, yeah. And then we have that. Yeah, I think I'm liking these. Problem is that this other stuff is let's first of all assemble this and then we're going to see, but there are some code that I think I would want to use. So in the store, users, so let's go there and let's say put this one here and we should say users. So let's do store.ts and I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. So this is Zeus stand. We need to kind of yarn add. We need to like we need to install that, and then we need to kind of get this stuff up. So import, we need to add all missing ones. Okay, so the store seems to be okay. So what have we done here? We have done, we can create, we can update user, we can delete, we can get user, and I think we also need a way to get users, all of them as well. So yeah, we might, yeah, we would need to kind of get, I think, that, but I think that store is okay. So let's go ahead and let's see here. Okay, update, we already done with that. So we need to like the hooks. So these are the hooks. Let's try to put some hooks here. Hooks. And let's first of all get rid of these and obviously bring these up. And let's see if this is going to be the case. And then what is it saying now? It's saying we need an index, but I'm just gonna go ahead and skip that. And then in this part here, I'm just gonna go ahead and do something and say user list. Okay, so let's save this. I'm going to go here and say users .tsx. That's gonna be our stuff. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do grab that and bring all of those and save these. So sure enough, we now have that. One thing I think I want is that this thing, we need to have a loaders here. I think is empty because arrays are kind of hard to, get, I don't know, get to sort of manage it manually. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add yarn add loaders. I think something like that. Really, what's wrong with this command? Ah, there we go. So it's supposed to be yarn add loaders. I think it's something like that. Yeah. So now we can essentially import this from loaders. The missing. Really? What the hell is going on? So let's see. Import X from loaders and is empty. Did I just oh, okay, so it wants us to kind of have that. So I'm gonna go ahead and add these. Let's see. Loaders doesn't have a type, is that right? Okay, and then we also need to, of course, if this is not empty, then we need to do that. I don't know why this is complaining, but we're gonna see. This is Next.js stuff, I think. Yes, that's true. So now user list, we are just gonna come here and add this stuff. We're going to come to the page. I think this is all user stuff. We'll come to the page here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put that, and obviously import that as well, and voila. So let's see if we come to the user, right? And for now let's just navigate. Let's just navigate manually. Users. Okay, so it's complaining that we need to declare that part of our place where we're using states, that thing needs to be a client component. So by default, when you are building application in Next.js, everything you create, I think not just Next.js, this is a React thing. So you will need to essentially like this parent here where we are using like a hook, this needs to be a front-end code. So we're going to kind of declare here, we can say this is going to be use client, and we now have that. So what do we have? Let's see here. Now we can add a user. If we add a user, we see that Alice is there. We can delete that user. And what about editing? The editing thing is it's not there, but that's terrible. So let's see, create a user. For this, for creating the user, we really need a form. So for now, let's say this way we can ask the user for the names and that sort of thing. So let's see here. Okay, so let's go ahead and say, okay, in the AI, let's say, okay, so can you say, how do I say, can you add, a form component to let user to collect user fields, name, user name, and photo URL, something like this, and photo URL, and also, and maybe, and reuse the form for editing the fields as well. Let's see what changes it's going to make. So for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and do this. Let me see, add, and we're going to go and commit that. In fact, I can just say here, commit add scaffold CRUD for user object. Okay, so we have that. Let's see. It went ahead and says that we should have this, we should add the React hook form. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. I think we already have Zod, but it doesn't hurt. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that. Let's do that and then see. So this is going to be the user form. Okay, so we have that. Let's actually copy this and then very quickly add that. So you can see these are things that can take like a ton of times if you were to do this manually, but now with AI, we can use it as the knowledge engine, and then we sort of like just tweak things around very quickly and get moving. All right, so looks like this one works well, and let's see what's the next stuff. User manager. So okay, the user manager has something here like this, so let's also copy this, and I'm gonna go ahead and also create a new one, user manager.tsx, and paste that there. And of course, as usual, get rid of these, and I'm just gonna go and grab both of them here and save that. So the next thing we need to do is the wiring. Let's see, did it do the wiring? Has it done the wiring? Okay, let's see. Okay, so the user form obviously is here, and then we are able to do this. So obviously we will need to take this user form and put it into and replace it, I think, here in the user. But yeah, I think we need to replace it with this user. So let's see, that's gonna be that. I'm just gonna go ahead and get that, grab that user form and the user manager and get rid of this. Okay, so now it looks like if we come back to our app, in fact, I'm just gonna go ahead and say localhost. Let me see, just grab this other one because I don't want to be flipping around from this one to the other one there. So let's see. It looks like we have the same problem there as well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and push that there, and we still have the same issue. So here in the user manager, Again, you remember it, that error, we need to fix it by declaring that this is this is a client component, and now we have beautiful form here, so we can say the name is Lagu, and this one is also Lagu, so I'm going to say Lagu long, and the photo URL, this can be empty, so I'm just going to go ahead and create that. Now you can see here we have users here, so let's go ahead and add another one, Sarah. Sarah ball, and then we're gonna say this is S ball. This is also empty, we can create that. So you can see essentially we are able to create users now, right? We know now we have users here, and we can see edit this, and if I change this one to Lagu long Steven, let's update this user, and we can see here Lagu long Steven has been updated. So there we go. So we can also delete this user and then grab it, and then we have no user. So I think I would say the AI has done pretty good job. So now let's see what we need to do. So I'm going to say, okay, here we now need to say add how do I say, let me see here. So I'm going to say add and commit. So I'm going to say create user management form. Sorry about that. It's definitely not COVID. Yeah, okay, so we now have that. So what is next? So the next thing is that we know now we have created our UI, okay, and this UI now needs to be hooked up to the backend services. So in the backend services, there's obviously so many things that we can do, but for the sake of our framework, we are essentially just going to have we'll have something that is sort of that is something that is as simple and simplified to the framework that we are going to be creating. Now in here, so the very in here, when we are deleting, especially here when we're using this stuff here, when we're using these functions and all these ones here, we need to essentially, when we say delete, when we say set user, where is the set user coming from? So it's coming from the user state. All these functions here, we need to kind of hook them up to some sort of a database. So the most obvious backend service that everybody, at least naive people, kind of know is database persistency. So we want to be able to store the user's entry, because you can see if I refresh this page, so say let me add that, and then go ahead and create another one here. You say Justin L, and then I'm gonna go LL and then do that. But the problem is that if I try to save this, if I try to refresh it, as you can see, all those things are gone, right? Now there are a couple of things that you can use to solve this problem in a front end. You could use local storage. So the local storage is great, but the problem with it also is that it's not usable. It's not like you can't use it in production, because in production you want real database. So for mocking purposes, you could create and have that just use the um, use the what? How do I say? Use the local storage as your as your backend service for storing data. But the problem with that is that number one, the data is going to be stored in the browser. So if you change to another browser, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that data. Also, if you go and access it in another computer or in another device, you're not going to be able to check that data for the user that is carrying it. So that's a problem. We don't want to build application that is going to be just like used in the browser only, unless of course if you just know what you're doing or whatever. But I am yet to find a real world use cases for for building a full application that only uses local storage. And this is not to say that local storage is not used in production. Local storage is used in production all the time, right? But they are used sparingly for, like, say, maintaining UI states, for storing things like cookies or cookies. Obviously, cookies can be stored in cookies themselves because the browser can store cookies as well. Then there's of course another one called there's web SQL, but I think web SQL has been removed. And then you also have another one called um, let's actually open the browser app so we can see these things here. So if you come to application and you see there is local storage, so local storage can add things here on that. For example, if I just kind of demonstrate this is for learning purposes. But if I come here and say in the form, how do I where in the on submit, where is on submit? So here, if I just console here the data, here you would see in the browser, like, sorry, not that one there, but it should be something like in the curly brackets. And then if I come here and add iPhone and Lagu something whatever, now you can see here that this is already here. You can see the data that we collected from the user here has been loaded here. And then also we can essentially store this in the local storage. So if I come here and say local storage dot set item, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and put here JSON dot stringify. Actually, the item, I think we need the key, which is going to be users, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and do here JSON dot stringify, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put that data there. So the next time I try to, let's say, edit, so now delete this, and I'm just gonna go ahead and put here Lagu, and then again the username is Lagu and some URL or something, and then I'm going to go ahead and create. Now you can see there's an error here, but if we come here, hopefully you can see we also have some kind of data that has already been stored here. Now, even if I refresh this data is not getting like wiped up. It's still there. Now, the next thing we would essentially need is that here maybe in the if we go to the create user, whatever, use user or whatever, if we go there and in creating the user, we could essentially add some kind of logic here and add this stuff to the local storage. But also when we are reading users, we, especially here, we could actually get this thing from the state or get it from the browser's storage. So that is how you could use local storage. But this is not a course for local storage. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. And then you also have like session storage. So the session storage would be something like when you store the store that information, so the same way I did store information in local storage, you could use session storage to store that information there. But you have to remember that the session storage will only work on the current tab. It's never gonna go, and if I store this data here and I open this in another tab or in another browser or in another machine, it's not gonna stick. Local storage will persist across different tabs. So even if you're in a different tab, as long as you're in the same browser, you still have access to that data. And then IndexedDB. So IndexedDB is kind of like this that we talked about, but the key difference here is it gives you more storage power. So session storage, I don't know how much it is, but this one, I think the local storage gives you up to 5 megabytes. And so there are limitations of storage here, so they are not meant to store like a gigantic amount of data in this app. So here, this is a little bit much more better, and people use this a lot even in production to store, like, to manage like a complex UI state with lots of data. You see that it's being used, essentially the IndexedDB. So we might also take advantage of maybe the IndexedDB in trying to build that framework, but I still don't know how that is going to work. But you just need to, all you need to know right now here is that we have created our front end, and the next thing is we want to be able to save data into the database. So the service that we are, that one of the service that we must expose in our framework is handling like databases, so that the user can quickly, whatever they have, like all this CRUD application that we have here, so these things can just interface with the database and save stuff in the database, and once it is success, then it handles, and then we can also read things from the database. So that's going to be one of the primary function of our framework that we are going to build. Now, let's see, in the next video, because this one has gone like way long than I imagined, but in the next video, once we come, what we are going to do is that we will try to create like a replica of what our framework, the functions that our framework is going to kind of carry for the users who are going to use it to build applications around it. All right, so in that, we are going to do something very simple. We will just mock up in the naive way, and that will kind of give us some sort of what it is that we want to achieve, and then we would go ahead and essentially wipe that out with the service that we are going to be that we're going to get from our backend service. Okay, so what do we have? I think this is a good time for us to kind of go and stop here. So if you still don't understand most of this stuff, I would recommend that you go read documentations for some of these libraries that we're using here, and then hopefully when you come back, then you can let me know. And also, don't forget, come here on Skyco. Just come and come find me out and talk to me. You can come to look at some of my posts here, or essentially if you come to users, if you go to users and then /Lagoon, that's essentially going to come to me, and then you should be able to actually reach out to me from there. So this is my Skyco profile here. You can essentially text message, you can message me here, right here. When you come here, you can message me, and you can also book a meeting with me. You don't have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about paying this stuff. Just make sure, if you can, that's fine. If you cannot do it, just put there put in the text message you're sending me, I can't. And I would be actually even more inclined if, let's say, like there's more people, more than 5 or more, just want to come together so they can ask a question. This way, I don't have to get like sporadic, you know, questions here and there. That would be actually very, very good. So I think that would do for this particular video. It has been very long, but hopefully you've learned something and you've built some muscle skills in that. And let's go and see what the next video would be like.